Welcome in, everybody. It's another episode of Neurologically Speaking. We're here with our guest, Valkyrie Spirit.
Hello.
There she
Hi,
is.
everybody.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Or good to hear you.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you for being here, first of all. Appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. It's really, really going to be awesome. And I'm very honored that you asked me to be a part of this. So thank you again.
Thank you very much. I'm just as honored to have you here. First off, we'll go ahead and start out like we normally do. We'd love to hear a little bit more about who you are, Now we've seen you here on stream a little bit, but yeah. Who are you? Who are you? Who is Valkyrie Spirit?
Who is Valkyrie Spirit? Well, I am a woman who lives in New Jersey, which is a very exciting place to live, as everyone knows in the whole world. Um, Otherwise, I'm really into video games. That's kind of how I found my way onto Twitch. I'm also a nurse. I went to nursing school for 4 years and have a degree. So that's definitely a big part of my life. And what else can I really say about myself? I just, I don't know. Whatever you want to know, just ask away.
Yeah, like what are some of the things you enjoy doing outside of here? What is your medical specialty? Stuff like that. Yeah.
I play a lot of video games, as I'm sure a lot of people here do. Um, I also enjoy doing some art occasionally, nothing too crazy. I specialized in obstetrics and high risk pregnancy, so maternal fetal medicine. And I was certified in a few things like electronic fetal monitoring. So I had that sort of specialty under my belt as well for a while.
Wow. Sounds like you really got knee deep in that kind of stuff. And
Yeah, yeah.
can I ask, were you a doctor or?
No, I was a nurse. So I was in working right out of college at a position where they kind of like train new nurses to be specialized nurses eventually. So it was like a special program you had to be a part of for X amount of years and get all these things done. And it was kind of complicated.
Sounds like it, but it sounds like it was worth it for you because you really got some interesting knowledge and you got to practice in a field that you wanted to get into. It sounds like you were very much into it, yeah?
Yeah, I was very into it. It wasn't, what I initially had planned to do, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk more about the NMO and everything aspect of it. But it ended up turning out to be really good.
Great, yeah. What was it? What was one of the best things about that? What was one of the things you enjoyed the most?
Oh, I really loved working with babies, which you didn't get to work with them very often because you had all the pregnant mommies, and our job was to keep the mommies pregnant. So we didn't get to see them very often, but when you did, that was always such a treat, and it like really made it all, it really made you look at it as like the bigger picture, and it was incredible. The science and the medicine around all of that is just astonishing, and what they can do now and how they can, save lives is really incredible.
It's true. I'm sure that was a very, very rewarding job. Yeah, absolutely.
It had its ups and downs for sure, but it was fun. It was fun.
Of course, I mean anything that's rewarding is also going to have its challenges and its low points and all that. But
Hmm.
sure, just seeing those babies being brought into the world that nobody thought were going to be possible is extremely, extremely rewarding for you.
Yes, it was. It definitely was. It was a lot of fun.
All right. So about how long did you do that for? And like you said, right out of college, you got into that sort of job, right?
Yes. So I did that for about a year and a half before I had to go on to disability. Um, so I only have like a year and a half of like official working experience outside of college, but I definitely learned a lot in that year and a half for sure.
Okay, so you had a year and a half, and then what happened during that year and a half? Let's kind of like lead into your talk about your conditions and things like that. And I'm really interested,
Well,
like, to be talking to somebody that has a medical background too, because you'll be able to give us some some of the medical standpoint on the stuff as well, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Well, should I start from the beginning? Because
Please do. I love it when people start from the
all
beginning.
right, well, I'll
Absolutely.
start from the beginning. So, I was a kid who was always sick a lot. I unfortunately was unlucky with that. I spent a lot of time in the hospital and whatnot. And but I was, active and generally healthy and everything. And one year for my, I want to say this was in 2004. So I was 12. Um, I went for a regular routine checkup at my doctor and I got a tetanus shot, which is a very common shot that lots and lots of people get. And immediately I got very ill. I started having problems with like headaches really bad and vomiting really bad and fever that wouldn't go away and just like this crazy illness that kind of came out of nowhere.
And
And
that's not a normal side effect for a tetanus shot, yeah?
no, definitely not a normal side effect for a tetanus shot. Um, so I went to doctors and everything, and everybody was like, "Oh, it's just a migraine. It's this, it's that." Nobody really knew what it was, but they kind of would guess it was something, put a label on it, and send me on my way. Dehydration, migraine, whatever. Give her a bag of saline and ship her out.
Yeah,
But
that sounds pretty similar to another guest we had on, yeah. Like
yeah,
just
it's
a hard to
it's
diagnose, hard to nail down condition that nobody really knew how to treat.
exactly. And especially as a pediatric patient, they really don't expect these types of things to come up. Um, so, anyway, after about a week or maybe 2 weeks of this illness going on, I started noticing that I was having trouble seeing. And it was like when you get your picture taken with a really, really bright light and you have like spots in your eyes for a couple of seconds. Everybody kind of knows what that's like.
Yeah,
Um,
I've had a similar situation, like, when I go if I like, it's weird, like, if I go running at night sometimes, there'll be, like, a darker, like, spot in my vision sometimes. I
mhm,
don't know what it is, but,
yeah,
I'm guessing that that's the same kinda similar situation where, like, there's just a spot where you're not seeing anything.
right. And it was very strange. They would come and go at first, and then slowly they would stay longer and longer and longer until eventually they just became a permanent part. And this persisted for a little while. They were still saying it was migraines. And one day I was talking to my mom and like I had my hand in front of my face and I said to her, I can't see my hand in front of my face. So we went to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, which I'm going to plug because they're one of the best pediatric hospitals in the world. And they nailed down and said she has optic neuritis. Now, optic neuritis is when your optic nerves become inflamed, and it can be caused by all kinds of things. But at the time, they just said, well, she's 12 years old. She's never had anything like this before. She'll probably never have anything like it again. And they treated me with steroids. And I was in the hospital for about a week. Um, it was really rough. MRIs, lots and lots and lots and lots of MRIs, checking to make sure I didn't have sarcoidosis and multiple sclerosis and all that kind of stuff. Um, and it really kind of, I had lingering damage. Like every single attack I've had something that lingers. And I had lingering vision issues. And because of this whole event, I was out of school for quite a while and I was completely thrown off and everything was kind of wacky.
So
But
out of school, you don't mean out of college? You mean, like, more out of middle school or high school?
Yeah, I was out of middle school for about, I want to say 2 months because I couldn't see
Oh, so
at all.
this started very early on then.
Hmm. But
I was kind of reading about that a little bit to kind of prep for this. So there's two kind of spikes of NMO that happen, one in
hmm
childhood and then one later on when you're in your 40s. And it
hmm
sounds like you're part of the earlier group, yeah?
Yep, I'm a lucky duck, right?
That's
What are
one
you
way to
gonna
look at it.
do?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Um, but yeah, so I did that, and then I had really no problems for the next 6 years. I followed up with a optic neurologist, or an neuro-ophthalmologist is what they're called. A neuro-ophthalmologist, which is a mouthful, regularly every year. And, they just said, we think it was a one-time event. We don't think this is ever going to happen again. You know, you're fine. So I believed I was fine. So fast forward to 2010, I'm getting ready to start college. And I was on vacation in Virginia, which was 7 hours away from where I lived. And I started having these headaches. Nothing too crazy. I just thought they were like sinus pressure headaches. It was nothing crazy. But then I started to notice, like, really quickly, my vision went downhill. Like, one day I was okay and I was just having headaches. And then the next day, everything to describe what my blindness was like, if you imagine like a snowy television and like make it dark, like gray dark. That's what it looked like. And that's kind of like what my vision was turning into. So my parents rushed down to come get me, rushed me back up, took me to the neurologist that I had seen all these years, and he didn't believe me.
Oh, that's the best. Wow.
Yeah,
To come back with
he
these
didn't believe me.
yeah, to come back with these subjective complaints and have your doctor be like, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, he didn't believe me. So we went home, and I remember being very upset and saying it's too soon. And the next day I was much worse. I wish I could tell you like what levels my eyes were like, but they were ridiculously off the chart. Um, and I went to a special hospital called Wills Eye Hospital. It's in Philadelphia. And they did an MRI on me, and they said, sure enough, you have optic neuritis again. So, of course, this was very shocking. It happened differently than it did the first time. This is after 6 years of being told you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. And I'm getting ready to start college in like a week. So I
Yeah.
was a little panicked about that.
Yeah, I'm sure you were.
Um,
It couldn't really come at a worse time.
yeah.
And
And
also
like,
it kind of follows the ideology of it though, like because it can be where there's attacks of this, but then there's years between them, and it sounds like that's what happened with you. You were fine for
yep,
years and years, but then oh nope, we never actually left. We were just kind of hanging out and waiting for you to start something big
exactly.
in your life. Now we got to do this again.
Yeah, exactly. We were just waiting for the opportune moment to come and, you know,
Yeah.
make you a little bit crazy for a little while.
So you mentioned optic neuritis. I know what that is, but can we explain that for our listeners?
Yeah, so optic neuritis is when your optic nerves, which transmit signals, from your eyes to your brain, get inflamed, and it can cause, permanent damage, or sometimes people can have it totally reversed. Um, it's caused by a number of different things. It's commonly connected with multiple sclerosis, but it's also commonly connected with neuromyelitis optica.
Yeah, so optic neuritis or ON can happen in both of those disorders. Ooh,
Excuse me.
that's okay, no worries. It can happen in both of those disorders, but for you, it's particular. It's specific to NMO. Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, you went back to the hospital right about the time that college was starting, and
And they said I had optic neuritis, and we complained to the doctor that did not believe me, and he, we started seeing another doctor who did believe me.
good, good for
And
you.
they still said, we don't think that this is, we think you're extremely unlucky, but we still don't think you have multiple sclerosis, because I didn't have any other signs of that. It was just the two cases of the optic neuritis.
Yeah, but that's kind of how
So,
NMO goes. Is that like,
yeah.
yeah, that's the difference. But they didn't see
But
that yet. It sounds like.
right. And not everybody knows what NMO is. It's very rare. Only like I forget what the number is, but it's really, really uncommon, and a lot of doctors have never heard of it before. So it's tough to diagnose and pin down. Um, so I started college like totally colorblind, completely blind in my right eye. Um, and was using like the special disability center and everything, which thank God colleges have disability support centers because they are amazing. um
Yeah, definitely.
so after that, I what I it took me about this happened in August, and it took me until January for my vision to get close to back to normal. And I still have lingering damage. Like if you imagine you know like you're looking through a pinhole and everything around it is foggy, but you have like a little bit of clarity in the middle. That's kind of my right eye. My left eye kind of overcompensates a lot and helps, but I often have eye strain and eye fatigue because of those things.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Um,
And you mentioned lack of color vision too, yeah?
yeah, that was temporary, thank God.
Yeah, seriously.
But all my greens turned into browns, which was very strange, naturally.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Um, and very upsetting, as a young teenage girl. But fortunately, over time, it very slowly came back. Thank goodness.
Yeah, I'm glad for you. Yeah, it sounds like for a while a subset of the cones in your retina were affected, but they regained their ability, which is really good.
Yeah, and that's the thing with like all of these attacks is like they usually leave some bit of permanent damage, but um it's hard to say, how much it's going to be. So it's just kind of like you're just going to get better until you stop getting better, and that's it.
Yeah, it's the same
Um,
kind of way with MS too, and a lot of
exactly.
autoimmune disorders. Like, we can't tell you what your immune system's going to attack and for how long and to what degree, but it's going to happen, and when it doesn't happen, it's not going to happen anymore, and then you'll recover some maybe. Like,
Yeah,
this is a
yeah, that's
very inexact science. Like, they don't have this pinned down. And I think a lot of
yeah,
people are under the impression that they do with disorders like MS and stuff, but they really don't. Besides immunosuppressants, there's not a ton that they could do about it.
yeah. It's pretty tough. It's tough. It's very complicated.
It is
But
indeed. It is indeed.
I'll fast forward to the exciting part of my diagnosis story.
Sure, go right ahead.
Is attack number 3, which happened when I was 20. So this is 2012.
So
Um,
partway through college, then, yeah.
Yep, I was a junior in college. I had just started my fall semester, and this one I remember very, very distinctly because this was when I was finally diagnosed. Um, I got very sick with just like colds, sinus infections, ear infections, upper respiratory stuff, like nothing crazy, but just these illnesses that I couldn't get to go away. And I was going to doctors and doctors and doctors and taking everything you can take, right? Um, and eventually, I remember I started to have this pain in the back of my head, like kind of like right at the base of where your skull meets your neck. And it felt like I got punched. Like that was the only way I could describe it, was I got punched in the back of the head. And this persisted for a few days. And the pain was so bad, I went to the emergency room, and they said, we don't know what it is, probably just a headache or something. Here's some pain medicine, go home.
Yeah,
You
that's probably just a headache. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So that's good old hospitals for you.
Yeah, they get a
So
triage treat and get you out of there, I guess. And
yeah.
in this case, unfortunately, I guess your symptoms and description of that didn't warrant taking a closer look at it, even though you would have
I
benefited from them doing that. Yeah.
I think that I didn't go to a very good hospital that time. There were better hospitals in the area, but that was the closest one to my college. Um,
Yeah. And when
and
you're a college student and when you're in severe pain, you don't stop and consider like, like, well, let me weigh my options
yeah,
here. You're like, no, I'm going to a hospital and like they better sort it out because this is not going to continue.
yeah, it was rough to say the very least. Um, But so this persisted for about a week, I want to say. And I remember after about a week of this pain in the back of my head, I was taking a shower and washing my hair. And I noticed I couldn't feel my thumb, my pointer finger, and my middle finger in my right hand. And I panicked naturally. So I called that stupid old neuro-ophthalmologist who
Oh
never
no.
believed me.
Oh man.
And I was like,
I
this
could
is
just
what's happening.
yeah, I could
And
just
he
hear
said,
I could just hear the oh, it's you again from here.
exactly. He told me, he gave me good advice though. He said, you guys are close enough. Go to Johns Hopkins. Go get checked out.
Okay, good. So yeah, it tells you to go to John Hopkins, and that's a renowned hospital. You can
Yes.
rest assured there's good doctors there, right?
Yes. And I was prepared because I had all of my medical records from my previous 2 optic neuritis attacks. So that saved me, and I'll explain why. Um, get to the hospital after this is a couple hours after I had called. And by that time, I couldn't really walk. I was having trouble with balance. Um, I was having, I had lost pretty much all strength in my right hand, and a lot of motor control in my right hand. So it was mostly affecting my right hand and arm on the inside of your arm. Like if you look at your arm and cut it in half vertically, the inside of your arm was the part that it was affecting. And that's because um, that particular area of my spinal cord is the area that was being attacked by my immune system.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the exact measurements of the lesion for this one, but it was like C3 to C5,
Okay.
6. I don't
So
remember,
that's okay.
but
For
pretty
listeners that
long.
wouldn't know, yeah, that covers 2 or 3 vertebrae in the neck.
Mm-hmm. Which is pretty big.
That's quite big, yeah. That's gonna cover a lot of the nerves that would go out to your extremities, specifically your arms in this case, to give you movement and sensation of those limbs.
Mm-hmm.
And since those are being attacked, you lost your sensation, lost the muscle control of those things, and I would imagine you had a fair degree of alarm about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so at first, the doctors didn't take me very seriously, but I gave them my records and I said, please look at these. This is my history. Something is going on here that's bigger than a headache. And they did. And they said, we're going to get you an MRI. We're going to make sure that we get you on some steroids and, blah, 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 blah. That was the plan.
Good.
So they get the MRI and they come in and they say, you have multiple sclerosis.
Okay, that thing that they were saying you didn't have all this time.
Exactly.
Now you do have it.
Exactly. And I was, 20 years old. I was a nursing student and I knew what the implications of multiple sclerosis meant. And I was devastated. I was very scared.
I'm sure. Yeah, anybody would be. Even if you don't know like everything about it, you hear it often enough and know that like that's a life-changing illness,
Yeah. Yeah. It was brutal. And fortunately, they took a closer look at my history and everything. And one of the best NMO doctors, Dr. Michael Levy from Johns Hopkins, he looked over my case and he said, no, she doesn't have multiple sclerosis. She has neuromyelitis optica, or NMO. So I started seeing him instead of that old, stuffy neuro-ophthalmologist.
Yes. And the
And I
relief
got
was
put
palpable, I'm sure, because good God.
Yes. Oh, yes. He was a really good doctor. He was very interested and still is in research. And there's not a lot of research being done on NMO naturally. So he's kind of like the head honcho.
Yeah, and why
He's the
why
guy.
isn't there research being done?
Because it's so uncommon, it just doesn't get done. Now, there is an organization that does raise money for like research and everything like that, but there's only one that I know of in the whole world.
Yeah.
And, for other diseases like Alzheimer's or MS or something, there's a lot more than one. So
Yeah.
if you imagine the amount of research, it's very small compared to other things.
And that's the
Um,
thing that kind of typically happens in the medical field is if they put dollars and research hours into things that affect a lot of people or like large cases, or there's a lot of people with that, but the rarer disorders, no matter how debilitating they might be, those get relatively less research dollars, to the
yeah,
chagrin of people that suffer from those diseases, because they end up just being test subjects a lot of times, and not really, there's not much of a promise of any sort of real treatment for them.
right. Yeah. It's it's very not fun to say the
I'm
least.
sure. I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, it's just to go to a doctor, because again, people go to doctors and trust that, like, okay, doctor's got me. But then to hear your doctor say, like, yeah, there's not a lot of research in this, and we don't really have a clear treatment for it.
Yeah.
That's defeating on many levels, I'm sure, right?
Oh, yeah. But the good thing about Dr. Levy was he always took the time to sit down and answer questions. He gave us his email address to contact him whenever we wanted. And trust me, when I first was diagnosed, I emailed him like once a week because every twitch scared me. I was like, it's another attack. Something bad is happening. But I was on steroids for a while. And then I got put on this drug called Rituxan or rituximab, which is the generic name, rituximab. It's a drug typically used for chemo, and it's used to, beat your immune system into submission so that it stops attacking the good parts of your body.
Yeah, so
Um,
it's a immunosuppressant, yeah.
exactly, yes, immunosuppressant. So it was an infusion. You have to go get it, much like you would have to go get chemo, but you only had to get it like every 6 months or so. And it would last. And I was on this drug for about 4 years. And, the good thing about NMO is if you're on the right medication, you can kind of go into remission. However, if you're not on the right medication, there's no way to tell that until something bad happens.
Ooh,
I
yeah.
was warned, like this isn't a cure. This could fail. You could still have multiple sclerosis, but we think you have this, and we're pretty sure that it's this. Um, and it was a lot of things still up in the air. So they told me also too, and this kind of ties in with my work, but I wanted to be a pediatric nurse very badly. And that was my full intentions on going to school and everything. And they said, if you have any dreams of working with children, you better give them up now, because with no immune system, it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was tough to swallow. It,
Sure.
it was a tough time in my life for sure. And I went home. I couldn't take care of myself. I couldn't cut my own food. I could barely feed myself. I couldn't get around. But despite all that, I didn't give up, and I kept pushing and going to school. And even though I was, encouraged to take a medical leave of absence, I didn't. And I made Dean's List that semester. And
Hell yeah. Good on you. That's
yeah,
awesome.
so I kicked NMO's butt that semester, and that was awesome.
Badass. Good for you.
Yeah. So, so I continued through school and graduated, of course, and went on to start my career, all still while doing the Rituxan and following up with my doctor super regularly, having blood work done, getting MRIs, all the stuff you need to do.
And since you'd
Um,
started taking the Rituxan, your symptoms ameliorated some? They kind of went away fully or partially, or?
well, so as far as with the hand and everything went, that was an attack of transverse myelitis, um, which is also, commonly associated with MS, if people are more familiar with that.
True, and also
Um,
very much associated with NMO. NMO usually leads
yes.
to the optic neuritis and transverse myelitis, and kind of specifically those two things, yeah?
Yes, it usually doesn't affect the brain. It can. And for me, I have lesions on my optic nerve, my my spinal cord. I have two lesions on my spinal cord. And then I have a lesion on my thalamus and my brain stem. And these
Okay.
are all lesions that are not active anymore, but they can see them in MRI imaging, like the old scars, I should say, quote
Yeah.
unquote.
And there's going to be lasting, like, damage and stuff there still. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and I would say, like, my hand functions at about 80%, but I did a lot of hand therapy and physical therapy to kind of get myself back to where I needed to be, and I was able to walk just fine. I got my balance issues squared away, I got my strength issues mostly squared away, and, the only thing that really affected me in 2012 was after that attack was when I started experiencing chronic fatigue. And that was very difficult for me to adjust to because I was a, you know, nursing student working three part-time jobs, and part of all these clubs and always doing things, and I was very active. And my life just came to like a screeching halt because my body just wouldn't cooperate anymore. And that's something I still struggle with today
Sure.
is, how do you deal with that and how do you cope with losing those abilities? And it's tough. It's definitely tough.
Yep.
But
Can you explain to everybody a little bit more about chronic fatigue syndrome for those that may not know what that is?
it's really, really hard to explain. But I don't know the right technical terms for it or anything. You could probably explain it better in that sense than I could.
I'll
But
jump in when you're done if I
yeah,
feel like we need to. It's okay.
it's essentially just your body is tired all the time, and like you need to do things and have desire to do things and want to do things, but you just can't. And there is no real super rhyme or reason to it. Like I definitely struggle more in the heat. Summer is bad for me and my all my symptoms flare up, including my fatigue problems. But yeah, it's that's the best way I think I can describe it.
And yeah, that's a lot of what I know about it too. The vexing part of it is that there's not really a clear etiology for it. It just kind of happens, and oh, now you're tired, and there's not a lot we can do about that because they don't really know how it works. But
Pretty much.
yeah, hey
And like
oh, go ahead.
a lot of people don't believe that, you have an issue, you're just being lazy. Oh, you just don't want to do it. And that's not the case. Like I will
Yeah,
tell you, my bedroom is a disaster zone right now, and I would love to deep clean it like I used to be able to prior to 2012. But I just don't have that ability anymore.
that's true.
And I have to deal with that as best I can. And in that, I have to be more forgiving of myself. And
It,
that has taken me a long time to, get used to, is being more forgiving of myself and not being such a perfectionist, because I definitely was a perfectionist.
yeah, no, you sounded like you were definitely a high functioning person before, but like
I
your
was pretty
body's
hardcore.
yeah, you sounded like it. But your body's simply not going to let you do that sometimes. And I think you
No.
bring up an interesting point that not only do you have to learn to live with it, but other people in your life have to learn to live with that too. And, trust that like you're not just being a lazy ass. Like you want to, nobody wants to be getting up and doing these things more than you do.
Yeah.
And it
Like
really takes
I,
like some trust on their end to know like no, like she really can't. Like she's not just being lazy, she actually can't get up and do this right now.
yeah. And it's still something I worry about with my family. Like they help me so much and I'm so appreciative of them, but I do worry that they do think I'm being lazy sometimes when I'm really trying not to be, but it
Yeah.
is kind of what it is, and you just have to kind of reinforce, you know, that, yeah, I have chronic fatigue syndrome. I can't help it. I'm doing the best I can. And that's really all
Sure.
you can do.
And that is all you can do. After that, like you just have to trust in the people around you that they believe you, you know?
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
it's really hard in our culture that says, like, if you're not working and 24/7 and only getting 2 hours of sleep a night, then you're not trying hard enough. When, like, there are some people that can't even get out of bed on certain days, and, like, that's their 100%, you know? And that kind of just has to be good enough sometimes.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
honestly, at a certain point, it becomes like if you can't accept that about a person, then that's your problem, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. And I will say, my family has definitely had to adjust just as I have had to adjust to my new body. And we do the best we can and we work as a team and we get things done. And it works. It's functional. Um but so after all this happened in 2012, I'll wrap up my diagnosis story.
Sure,
After
sure.
all this happened in 2012, I continued school, graduated, all that, was working, and I went up to visit my family for my birthday in 2016. I was turning 24 and I was going to New York City. And we went into New York City and we walked all around. We did a lot of shopping. We saw shows. We did this, we did that. Like there was no indication that anything was wrong. No indication at all.
And that's kind of what they
And
warned you about, right? Is that, like, we think we got it, but if we don't, you're not going to know till something goes wrong, right?
exactly. Like we're not going to know that it failed until it fails,
Ah,
essentially.
man.
And it's just like one of those things where it's like, it is what it is.
And when maybe you weren't thinking about this, maybe you were just focusing on living life, and that which is totally understandable. But, like, after you got started taking the, I'm sorry, was it what is it? The medication?
Rituxan.
Rituxan, that's the one, sorry. After
Mm-hmm.
you started taking the Rituxan, was there, it just kind of like in the back of your mind that, like, this may not be gone, this may not work, like, was that just kind of persisting with you and staying with you all the time, or were you able to just kind of put that out of your mind?
I would say 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was always in the back of my mind and still
Gosh.
is. It
Yeah,
still
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Because I mean, yeah, I'm on a different medication now and I've been stable for 3 years, but that doesn't mean anything.
No, and you've been stable for 6 before and it came back. Like,
Yeah,
what's to stop
exactly.
it, you know? And it's probably another case
Exactly.
where, like, we're gonna try this and come back in a few years if it doesn't work. We'll try something different. It's almost like a take 2 of these and call me in 5 years kind of
Yeah.
situation, you know?
Yeah,
Oh
kind
man.
of. It's frustrating to say the least, but
I'm sure
there's
just to have that always hanging
absolutely
over your head and, like, know there could be like a ticking time bomb in your body.
you're always over analyzing everything your body is doing
Yeah, yeah.
100% of the time. Any sort of twitch, any sort of pain, any sort of fatigue, you are noticing and you're constantly evaluating, do I need to go to the hospital? Do I need to contact my doctor?
Yeah.
And,
Like
you
if you
know,
slept on your arm wrong and woke up and it was numb, you're like, "Oh, what?" Like that's like a heart attack for you. Like, "Oh my god." Like that's a call the doctor kind of thing, whereas
yeah,
somebody not living with that might just think, "Oh, well, it'll probably go away. It's fine."
yeah. Yeah, and especially like stuff like that, time is of the essence. The longer you wait, the more damage is caused. So when something like that is happening and you are panicked and you're not as familiar with your body, it's very scary, very, very scary. And the first few years were very scary. And I was lucky I had a good doctor that I was able to keep in contact with, and he would get back to me very quickly. And
Yeah.
I had a lot of, false alarms, sure, but that's okay.
That's also it's the nature of it. It's gonna happen, you know?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
glad that I'm
exactly.
glad that you found that second doctor too, because the first one wasn't gonna do nothing for you.
Yeah,
So
he was kind of
yeah.
not the best.
Yes. Let's leave it at yeah, yeah. He was doing his
But
own thing, yeah.
yeah, he's living his life,
Exactly.
doing whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but so yeah, everything was totally fine. And we're coming home from New York and I started to have this pain in my back. And it got so bad, I said, I need to go to the hospital.
Yep,
It was
better
like
safe than sorry. Let's go.
it was like a burning pain, like I was on fire. By the time I got there, I was in complete agony and I couldn't move either of my legs at all. Zero movement whatsoever. So that was terrifying, needless to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, but
Got to call the boss and be like, hey, sorry, can't come into work, can't walk.
yeah. Sorry,
Surprise.
my body's on fire. See you
Yeah.
when I see
I
you.
I'm just screaming in the background, don't mind me. And these doctors didn't believe me either.
Dude,
They thought that it was psychological. They thought that
what?
I was drug seeking
Why is
and
why does it keep going to that? Like, why do these doctors keep jumping to the conclusion that you're faking it? Like, malingering
because
happens so infrequently, I feel like, doesn't it?
I mean, I think it's because it's a big problem where I'm from, like the opioid epidemic, as it is called around here. Um,
Okay, okay.
and I think that people that have chronic illnesses that require pain medication for it really suffer because of how hospitals and doctors respond to that. But that's a
Yeah.
whole other topic.
That totally is.
Um,
That's a whole
yeah,
another can of worms we could talk for like an hour about, and that's not why we're here today. Yeah.
no, no. But either way, they were not treating me like they should have. They gave me the steroids, but they were not relieving my pain at all. And I still couldn't walk. So I went to a rehab hospital and learned how to walk with a walker a little bit. And then had another attack the same year, and ended up back in the hospital a second time and ended up back in the rehab hospital. That year, I spent about 4 months total in hospitals.
Good God.
Um, and, my whole life came to a full stop. I was a fully independent working adult, living on my own, had my own apartment, I had my own stuff, I had my own bills, and now couldn't move either of my legs, couldn't work anymore, nothing. And I was in excruciating pain all the time. So that was fun.
Yeah. What a
Um,
hard thing to deal with. Just like doing something you love and like thinking that you've beat this illness that held you back for a while, and then nope, actually, just reaches out
yeah,
and just yanks you right back in. Good God. The perseverance that you have is just really admirable. And I'm seeing the same kind of comments in chat right now too. Just wow.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
It's been a whole it's been a world. It's been a world of experience, I should say. Um, but I ended up having to go on to disability for that. Um, I lost my job, lost my apartment, um, had to move back home with my family, so that they could help take care of me. And I still rely on them to this day to help take care of me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
thank goodness they're around because they they make sure that I'm well taken care of and got
Indeed.
everything I need.
Yeah, one
Um,
thing that's not often talked about is like if you're living on disability, you're probably not living independently. That
no,
does not pay a living wage at all. No.
it does not pay very much, and I'm pretty lucky in how much I get paid. I get paid a pretty decent amount, but even still, living on my own would be so difficult. It's not even worth trying.
Yeah, likely be
Um,
impossible for most people. Like it simply
yeah,
wouldn't work out.
yeah,
Not to mention
it's
like sure that you might be able to make enough to live in a place, but to get around and transport yourself and get the things you need, like probably not. Yeah.
right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's really unfortunate that that is the way that it is. I'm glad that you have the strong family support that you have.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky.
Yeah.
I'm very, very lucky to have my parents and my brother that are very close to me, and we all live in the same house, and it's kind of crazy, but we get by, we make it work.
Yeah, yeah.
And as far as that attack goes, long repercussions of that were I was in a wheelchair for about a year and a half. I'm still in a lot of pain because of that spinal cord injury that took place in my thoracic spinal cord, which is like the middle of your back for anybody who's not familiar. Um, I do see pain specialists. I see all kinds of doctors, neurologists, physiatrists, everybody. Um, everybody that you can see for these types of things. I am very well maintained, I should say.
That's good. That's good. I'm glad that you have a medical team that like takes it seriously, like
Yes, and I have a
believes
doctor
you.
who's very
Yeah.
conservative. She doesn't like to change things, she's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That type of thing,
Good.
which I'm okay with.
And also believing the patient when they say they're in extreme pain. Also
Yeah,
also a thing.
she's lovely in that way, thank goodness. She's very lovely in that way. I have a really good team of doctors now, and it took me a few years to find a good team of doctors because not every doctor is good.
It's
Um,
true.
and now that I have a good team of doctors, I'm pretty confident in the decisions that we make together about my health care and, what we're going to be doing and what the plan is, because there's all these new drugs coming out and everything. And I'm on a drug called Cellcept, which is kind of old. They give it to people who've had like, kidney transplants, for example.
Okay.
Uh,
Another immunosuppressant, yes?
Another immunosuppressant. And I've been taking that for a while, but it has a lot of negative side effects, like involving the sun and stomach issues and other things. And, I'm a young woman, and someday I would like to have a baby, probably. And in order to do that, I cannot be on this particular medication. It is perfectly safe for women with NMO to have children, but not on this medicine. It's not. So I've kind of been trying to get off of it for the past couple of years, and my doctor is pretty resistant about that, but I haven't given up yet.
Well, good. I mean, I'm glad that you will not give up on that dream, because
Yeah, definitely.
you sound like one that's been fighting as hard as you can for your dreams and, get as many as you can, That's what
Yeah, I
everybody
mean,
wants at the end of the day, right?
yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So that then brings us to present day then, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So present day, still on disability, which is okay. I'm in a lot better shape now than I was this time 3 years ago. I walk now. I can go up and down stairs. I drive again, which is really nice. I still have big issues with chronic fatigue. I still have major issues with pain in my back and my leg. I go to doctors a lot. I did a lot of physical therapy. I've put in a lot of hard work to get to where I am, and I still have a long way to go, but we're getting there slowly but surely.
Yes, and I hope you do, honestly. I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that I'm able to walk around my house without a cane blows my mind. Like when all of this happened in 2016, I just said, if I could walk with a cane someday, that's like, you know, amazing. That would be incredible, because I hated walking with the walker. It made me feel like an old lady.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like even old ladies don't want to walk with a walker. Like,
Yeah, they're
of
pretty
course,
ugly.
yeah. That and just like it's just the way it looks and like the connotation it brings. Like, it's just a young woman
Mm-hmm.
doesn't. No young person wants to be doing that.
No,
Yeah.
definitely not.
No. The independence is something that's taken for granted sometimes. I think it's
Oh yeah, and
yeah.
I mean, my independence uh was definitely taken away very quickly when all of that happened. Like a lot of things changed really fast, and you need people to help you take a shower and stuff, and that's a big reality check, I should say. Very big reality check.
Yeah, it would be. So, back to the chronic fatigue. I noticed one of the like the kind of key symptoms that sets apart from other things is after you like some post exertion, just like exhaustion, or malaise they call it. So like after
Mm.
you do something you're kind of physically demanding or something like that, you might be out of it for 12 hours, a whole day, something like that. Yeah.
Yep. I get tired making my bed in the morning, so I don't make it normally. But if I make my bed, sometimes I have to spend the whole rest of the day in that bed.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a big trade-off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I feel like these kind of things make you learn like what's really valuable to me at this point. I would love to
Yeah.
make my bed and clean my room, but do I want to spend the rest of the day like laying down? Maybe not,
Yeah. And
right?
being in agony, not really.
Yeah, no, maybe not. Maybe not.
Yeah. You have to learn to do the best you can slowly. and do little things here and there, but that's definitely easier said than done, definitely easier said than done.
Yeah.
I am not an expert on how to deal with chronic fatigue and all of that. Definitely not. I'm still very much learning that aspect of my body.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're the expert that you need. At the end of the day, you're the person that's going to be making those choices. So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So, what is like what's a kind of a common misconception of people or the disorder that you have or people with the disorder that you have? So that people just kind of get wrong all the time.
Mm, people think that it's multiple sclerosis because it's so similar. It's actually often misdiagnosed as multiple sclerosis a lot of times,
Which
which
happened
is
to you.
very,
Yeah.
yeah, which is very dangerous because the drugs that they give you for multiple sclerosis, if you give them to somebody with NMO, makes them worse.
Oh,
So
geez. Oh,
it's very dangerous.
yeah. I didn't know
Um,
that.
yeah, so that's probably like one of the biggest things. The other thing is, it definitely is a real disease that exists. I promise. Um,
Yeah, there's that.
it's a lot of people have never heard of it before, and people get really skeptical. And sometimes you run into a doctor that thinks they know everything and you know nothing, and that's rough. Those are always
And
rough,
also doesn't believe you. Yeah.
especially as like a medical professional. Like having to deal with people like that is so infuriating to me.
Absolutely, because like that's like the last thing you should be as a practitioner of science. The last thing you should be is one that feels like they know everything. There's nothing you could know, and there's no way you could be wrong about something.
Hmm.
Because then you stop taking into account all the signs and all the symptoms and making the correct diagnoses, and which you saw in your case.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm very sorry that you went through that. That's not good for anybody.
No, I mean, it hasn't been a fun time, that's for sure. But, the way I look at it, you can let it, tear you down and keep you down all the time, or you can just work with it and try to make the best of it. And I try to make the best of it.
I got that. I totally got that from you as you were talking about how you didn't stop and made the dean's list, kept on going, and like you're gonna do as much as you can, not let this slow you down as little as possible. And that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Like my body definitely threw me a huge curveball in 2016, but I'm trying to, keep on going. I haven't given up yet. And every year I get a little bit better. So, and again, it's one of those things where it's just like you just get better until you stop getting better. So, who knows when or if I will ever improve farther than this. It's hard to say. But if I don't, I'm very happy with where I am right now compared to where I used to be.
And I think, in my opinion, like you should be, because I mean, I think they're completely like able-bodied people that have less happen in their life and totally just give up.
Yeah.
Whereas like you've had some major, major setbacks in your life and you're gonna keep going. You're gonna keep at it. You're gonna get what you can get. And that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I really do try my best.
So
Make it work.
what is some advice that you would have for other people with your condition?
Advice for other people that would have NMO. Listen to your gut. If you feel like something is wrong, go get it checked out, because the worst thing that can happen is, yeah, maybe you get stuck a couple times by some needles. Maybe you got to sit through an MRI. Maybe you got to do this or that. And even I don't want to go to the ER when they tell me to go to the ER, because it's like, oh, I know this is going to be a several-hour affair. They're never going to get my blood on the first try. I'm going to have to do all this. Oh, it's so much of a pain, but I mean, it's life or death. So you got to really pay attention. Um, Another thing is, talk to people about it and teach people about it so they do understand, because people can't read your mind. And especially when it comes to things like chronic fatigue or, neurological weakness issues and stuff. Um, it's just complicated, to say the least. And you really do have to pay very close attention and make sure that you're taking care of yourself the way you're supposed to and taking your medicine the way you should. because you don't want to end up having an attack that could have been prevented, because it could kill you, really could.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think what you're, to summarize it, there's a big priority shift in your life when this sort of thing happens. Like certain things that were really important really take a back seat to, I need to make sure I take my medicine because I could end up in the hospital if I don't, you know?
Hmm.
Like there's just a big flip around of all your responsibilities and priorities and like what's really important to you at any point in
Yeah,
time.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And things that you maybe used to, are there things that used to like really worry you, things you used to fuss over that like you just don't even matter anymore?
Yeah,
like
definitely.
like what?
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, like, things that used to make you upset, like, it doesn't become such of a big deal, and you learn to take, I mean, at least I will speak for myself. I learned to take life a lot less seriously, and that's helped me be a happier person in the long run. So, yeah, my journey has been really crazy in my life, and have I gone through a lot of medical hell? Yes, I have, but still trying to, live the best life I can because it's the only one I got.
Hell yeah, you are. That's awesome. Like I said, you hear about people that have had much lesser setbacks, just totally, I'm done, whatever, and like,
Yeah.
not you, dude. That's amazing, awesome,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you
So,
very much.
yeah, at this point, could be time for you to plug any sort of projects you're a part of, or any funds that you're aware of, or anything like that. Anything you want to talk up, anything like that.
Yeah, well, I would like to talk about Guthie Jackson. I'll type it in chat so people can see it.
Please
The
do.
Guthie Jackson Charitable Foundation. That is the place to go to learn more about NMO. They really break it down into layman's terms for everyone. And, they have lots of information, lots of connections to doctors all over the world. Um, and they are like the place that does the research. They're the people that do the fundraising for the research. So that is like the best place to go. Um, Other than that, I am a part of studies. I'm not a part of a lot of studies because you can be NMO antibody negative, meaning that there is an NMO blood test, but I don't come up positive for it because of my age, or it's just not a very good test yet. Um,
Oh,
so
interesting. So the antibody that they would normally see in a person with NMO is not in your blood.
correct, they can't see it. It's
Interesting. Okay.
probably so like there's probably so little of it right now that they can't see it, which is
Interesting.
good.
Yeah, no, that's good. You want to make sure that there's none of that. Yeah.
Yes,
That's something we
for
didn't we
sure.
didn't cover, but that's one of the ways that they can kind of differentially diagnose NMO versus MS is in NMO they can do a blood draw or maybe a CSF draw, I'm not sure, or a spinal tap and
Oh
look for
yeah,
that
I've had
specific
multiple spinal taps. Those are not
No,
fun.
I'm sure they're not. No, nobody wants to be, poked in the spine like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't recommend them. I don't recommend doing that for like a Friday night. Come up with something else.
No, there's many more fun activities to be done, I'm sure.
Yes,
But yeah,
yes.
yeah, there's a blood draw that they might do, and there's a specific antibody they would be looking for to help diagnose NMO versus MS. And as you said, they aren't seeing much right now, and good. You want that to be you don't want to see that.
Yeah, it's good and bad because like it's good that it means that hopefully there's not a lot of it. But on the other side, I can't be a part of a lot of clinical trials because they only want people who are seropositive.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
Yeah, that makes sense. You can't try
so
some of the new treatments and stuff because they want somebody who's actively showing symptoms so they can see the effects.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So I have to wait a little bit longer for the new cool stuff that comes out, but I get it eventually.
Good. And I hope it helps you and everybody that would benefit from it. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
So Guthie Jackson Charitable Foundation. Sounds good. If you want to learn more about NMO and maybe even donate some money to that cause, yeah, there are many people out there that would appreciate that, it sounds like.
Yeah, they're awesome people. They have events every year, and they have lots of resources. So if you're curious, feel free to look out and find out more info.
Absolutely. All right. I'm just gonna check real quick, see if we had questions from chat. I didn't see any come through.
I saw one. Somebody asked if I was legally blind, and I am not. Um, for a period of time, I probably could have been considered legally blind when I had optic neuritis, but it was a very short amount of time, maybe like a month.
Yeah, since that's kind of gone into remission some. So you mentioned you were driving again. So,
Yes,
but I
I am
think
able to drive.
I think that person came in after you had said that. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah. So that was the only question that I saw, which means we did a good job of talking all about or explaining the conditions that you live with and left people with no questions, which is great.
Woohoo! And we kept it to about an hour.
And we did. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. I don't mind if it goes over a little bit, especially with an amazing, powerful story like yours and all the
Thank
information
you.
that you shared with us. So, yeah.
Well, I'm always happy to talk about it, anytime if you ever want to talk about it again or want more information or want more specifics, just let me know.
Absolutely. I'm totally open to having people come back on if there's like a new chapter or like a new just like a change in it. But yeah, and I hope that for everybody that comes and shares with us that there is in the future, especially you and other people for sure. I
Yeah,
hope that
yeah,
there is a big development that leads to a improved quality of your life because
yeah.
I,
I hope so too.
I
Fingers crossed.
yeah I think you guys deserve it for sure. So
Well, thank you. Thank you very
absolutely,
much.
and thank you for coming on Valkyrie Spirit, everybody. Like I said, the Guthrie Jackson Charitable Foundation is the place to go donate to and learn about more about neuromyelitis optica and probably related disorders too. I would guess.
Yes.
Okay, but yeah. Other than that, there don't seem to be any other questions or anything like that. So we're gonna call it.
All right. Well, thank you,
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you so much for being here, Valkyrie. I appreciate you sharing with us and teaching with us or teaching us, and I hope all the best for you in the future. Okay,
Thank you so much.
of
You as
course.
well. You as well.
All right, take it easy. Bye.
Bye.